This is the place where I spent some part of my childhood and I picked up reading. So we are going on a small hike right now to a beautiful spot that nestles between two houses on top of a hill. It's a small hike from here, and I think I'll sit down there very peacefully and talk about the best reading habits of mine. Hi everyone, welcome to Chalchitra Talks. मेरा नाम वाणी है and this is a very special episode because we're not shooting it at home. We've come out of our houses and we're in Himachal. And this is probably the place where I picked up reading. Up until now, I've done a lot of episodes on how to read more, my worst reading mistakes. And I also wanted to tell you what are some of the habits that I've picked up over the past few years that have really helped me read more. So, in no particular order, here are 7 best reading habits of mine. And I hope they'll help you. So, the first habit that I've picked up, and I've done this quite recently, I spoke about it in the worst reading habits as well. It's about setting up a routine. As we start getting a lot of things on our plate, we kind of stop reading. And a lot of people blame it on the time and the limited time that they have. So, one of the things that I learned recently was setting up a routine even when it comes to reading. For example, what I've started doing is I wake up 30 minutes before my usual bedtime and I read. I make it a point not to pick up my phone, but instead I go for a book. And that gives me 30 more minutes to read. And I do the same at night. Before I go to bed, I make it a point not to look at my phone and I just read. And when you do so, it becomes a part of your routine. Just like how you eat in a day, how you walk around maybe, reading also needs to be inculcated. And this is one of the habits that has recently increased my reading and is actually making me read at all. Because in the past few weeks, I just couldn't read anything. But setting up a routine made me pick up books. The second habit that I've actually inculcated, and I think I would recommend it to anyone and everyone, even if you do not like reading, is go visit a physical bookstore or a library. It will actually help you fall in love with books, and maybe actually you will come across a title that will inspire you to read and pick up reading. The third habit that I think changed reading for me was when I decided I don't need to stop at every page or at every word that I do not understand and consult the dictionary for it. It increased my reading speed and it also stopped breaking the flow that I experienced while reading. And along with this habit, there's also this thing whenever I sit down with a pencil that I like. So if there is anything, I always underline it. And if there is a word I do not know, I write it in the last few pages of the book and then I come back to it later. If it's very urgent, of course, I consult the dictionary, but I try my best to avoid things that would eventually hinder my reading experience. The next habit that I want to talk to you about is the art of making notes. Because I carry a pencil around, I regularly take notes. I underline things, I write into margins, I write on every blank page I get. And every time I turn back or every time I come back to a book, there's always something to hold on to. There's always something that awaits me, and there is always a new meaning in the lines I've underlined. And for some reason, these are the lines that stay with you for the rest of your life. And I also make it a point to write down the page numbers of things or text that has probably influenced me a whole lot at the end of the book. So every time I pick up the book again, I can always come back to that page and relive the feeling of reading this book. The next habit that I want to talk to you about is inferring the text of the book. Until now, I did not realize it's a habit, and I thought everyone used to do that naturally until I started discussing a few things with my friends. We were sitting somewhere and someone told me, hey, I'm not interested in this topic, but you're reading it and I know you're not interested in this topic as well. So how come you're still enjoying it? And that's when I realized a lot of people read text, but they read text superficially. They don't infer the meaning for themselves. So, for example, right now for a book a month, we're reading To Serve with Love. And it's a book about racism. Now, someone who's not comfortable reading about racism or is not interested in reading about racism would just walk by the book and not take in the idea of how people deal with hatred, negativity in work environment and life in general. Because a book is much more than the theme that people push about it in media or in general. Books are written in layers. Every great book has layers in its writing, and you will discover it for yourself only if you start inferring the meaning for yourself and not just the way author wanted to write it. And I think that has also in some way helped me develop my empathy a lot more. One of the best habits that I've inculcated after last year is to try and not read under pressure. This is something I'm still struggling with, but this has definitely changed the experience for me. The moment I start reading under pressure, you stop enjoying what you're reading. And then you're reading only because you want to finish the book, or you're only reading because, hey, everyone else is reading it around me and I want to be able to discuss it with them, or I just want to mark it as read on my Goodreads. And this is something that pressurized me so much last year. I was reading a lot more books than I usually would, but I just would not enjoy the process of reading them. Even though I made a resolution when we were entering 2021 that this year I won't be reading under pressure, a few months ago I started doing that again. May went really well. In June, I just do not know what happened and I started reading under pressure, and then I just broke down and I was like, I am not doing any reading until I stop reading under pressure. And because I stopped reading under pressure, I was able to find the joy of reading once again, which was very necessary. And the last habit that I think I would recommend to anyone and everyone that I think we have just started to talk about is it's okay to leave a book if you do not like it, if it's very popular, if it's not popular. It's okay to leave a book after one page if you think it's not suiting you in whatever atmosphere or setting you're in. And it happened with me when it comes to Harry Potter. I bought the book at the beginning of this year because I thought I'm going to sit down and read it because everyone has read it. I tried picking it up and I did not like it. Eventually, I picked it up now and I'm loving the series. But I think every book, every art form for that matter, has its own time, has its own place. And you cannot rush through it. You need to walk in with open arms, with an open mind, and let it engulf you. And only when you're able to do so, you're able to enjoy whatever you're reading, whatever it is that you're doing. So it's okay to drop books, it's okay to take breaks, it's okay to leave books in the middle. And I think that's something you should get comfortable with. Because when you keep on pushing to complete a book, you eventually miss out on this other book that you could have completed and that could have added much more value to your life. There is this book that I picked up very recently in one of the live streams, and it's called Lonely City. I had been trying to pick it up for quite some time, but I just could not get past the first page. I picked it up much later, and of course I regretted not picking it up sooner. But when I picked it up, I was able to understand what the words actually stood for, and it resonated more with me. It's about loneliness, and I think it characterizes loneliness in a beautiful way. And I would recommend everyone who lives, especially in the city or lives alone, to pick up this book. But in hindsight, had I read it immediately then, I would probably not have understood the words as well as I did a few days ago. So these were my reading habits that have probably helped me read much better. Some of these, honestly, I'm still trying to embed in my system. And I think it's going well. Let me know if you liked these habits. If you have some great habits that you'd like to recommend to me or the people, do comment them down below. I also want to tell you, if you like our work, if you like what we do, you can support us on Patreon or be a part of our YouTube community. We have very carefully, with a lot of thought and effort, created 3 memberships: Gladiators, Goodfellas, and Godfathers. Godfathers are at the top. Godfathers get to be a part of our monthly town hall sessions. They get invited to the streams, the quizzes. They are part of 5 WhatsApp groups. So there are a lot of perks with every membership. And if you like our work, if you love the recommendations that we bring to you, do support us. It really means a lot to us. And I will be back with another recommendation for you in my next episode.